Putin has stated that Russia will not accept sanctions and provocations. Russian President Vladimir Putin told Iran, China, and other leaders on Tuesday that Russia will continue to backtrack against Western sanctions over Moscow's military intervention in Ukraine. The Russian leader at the Shanghai Cooperation Organization (SCO) announced on television Russia counts on defense and will continue to fight sanctions and attacks abroad. US and EU stop military intervention in Moscow. Sanctions forced Russia to change this. Business focused on Asian markets, particularly energy exports. The Russian leader also thanked the SCO members for their support in the brief struggle against Russia's military leaders, led by Wagner's military group. Putin said, I would like to thank my colleagues who are members of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, who expressed their support for the Russian leader's actions to protect the rule of law and the safety of life and property of the people. At the end of June, the commander of Wagner's military group, Yevgeny Prigozhin, led his troops in a brief offensive against Moscow's top army, and Putin said that this posed a threat to the country in the first place. After Moscow invaded Ukraine, Russian President Vladimir Putin said that Russia will continue to fight Western sanctions. He spoke at a virtual meeting of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, his first address in an international forum since the Russian attack last month. Putin supports SCO members' trade in local currency, which is seen as an effort to weaken sanctions. 2023 SCO meeting was held in accordance with Indian tradition. Putin used the platform to send criticism to the West, noting that Russia takes into account all external sanctions, pressures and violence and continues to evolve in an unprecedented way. Wagner's mercenary group has appeared in public several times since it was briefly formed in June, but this is his first time with a global leader. I would like to thank my colleagues from the Shanghai Cooperation Organization for their support for the Russian leader's bridge of constitutional rights and the protection of citizens' life and property safety. Conference. TV address from Kremlin in Moscow. Putin added that more than 80% of the trade between China and Russia is done in rubles and yuan, and asked other SCO members to follow the same process. He also welcomed the offer of Russia's friend, Belarus, to become a permanent member of the SCO next year. Narendra Modi, the Prime Minister of India, who is the chair of the meeting, said the members should discuss trade, connectivity and technological cooperation etc., urged to strengthen. However, it did not directly address the war in Ukraine or China's growing assertiveness in the Indo-Pacific. Historically conflicted, India had to tighten its lines of communication due to its close relationship with the West. Just a few days ago, America rolled out the red carpet where Mr. Modi was on a state visit to Washington. When Mr. Modi talked about regional security, he did not mention India's long-suffering neighbor, China. In 2020, Indian and Chinese soldiers fought to the death on their long-disputed borders, and tensions continue today. The West sees India as a counterbalance to China, but Delhi has never opened the label. He couldn't do that in SCO anymore. The Indian Prime Minister instead asked member states to cooperate on cross-border terrorism. Some states use cross-border terrorism as a tool of their policies to provide security to terrorists. The SCO should not hesitate to criticize these countries, Mr. Modi said. But he also said minorities should not be demonized for following the national political agenda, which is seen as an excavation in predominantly Muslim India. Pakistan is accused of failing to protect the rights of Muslims. The Modi government has consistently rejected evidence of its failure to protect the rights of minorities in predominantly Hindu India. When it was his turn to speak, Chinese President Xi Jinping stressed the importance of maintaining regional peace and security. He urged SCO member states to act morally and strengthen unity and mutual trust. An important issue on which all members seem to agree is the security of Afghanistan after the Taliban took control of the country, after the withdrawal of American troops 2 years ago. A joint report to be released later will provide more information on how the SCO countries are cooperating in Afghanistan. China, Russia, and 4 Central Asian countries established the Shanghai Cooperation Organization in 2001 as an effort to limit Western influence in the region. India and Pakistan joined in 2017. As Russia and China's relations with the West deteriorated, the alliance became more and more important for both countries. Despite important meetings such as the BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, the G20 and the G7, the group's potential should not be underestimated, experts said. The SCO population accounts for about 40% of the world's population, and its GDP accounts for more than 20% of the world's total. Add Iran, which will control about 20% of the world's oil reserves. Iran's full membership in this year's conference will strengthen the SCO's workforce, but it will also provoke the anger of the West. As the SCO faces the Western-dominated forum, it will be more difficult for India to strike a balance between its international partners. But Indian diplomats say they are confident that their foreign policy will remain independent and not for a group. How New Delhi manages diplomacy, especially its differences with Russia, China, and Pakistan, will have an impact on the future of the SCO. The leader of Wagner's mercenary group, Yevgeny Prigozhin, launched a brief assault with his troops on Moscow's top army in June, which Putin said posed a threat to the country. The Jenin area is supposedly controlled by the Palestinian Authority under President Mahmoud Abbas, which has partial control of the West Bank. The ruling Fatah group has declared a general strike affecting private businesses and other businesses, as well as all Palestinian Authority workers within the country. A spokesman for UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres said in a statement that he deeply regrets the violence and called for respect for international law. Neighbors in Jordan have expressed similar concerns, with the United Arab Emirates calling for an immediate end to the repeated and escalating violence against the Palestinian people. The United States says Israel's allies have the right to protect its people from terrorist groups, but calls for civil protection.